Is it working?
Yay!
Yes.
Actually, this is way better because one of the things that has been bothering me is when I host it, the guest is on the bottom and
Oh,
all the comments are covering their face. And so this is actually way better. So I might actually just, moving forward, have you all invite me so I can
yay.
see your face. Hi, P. Thanks for
Hi.
doing this.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, were you able
Thank
to
you.
get some yard work done today? Was it sunny?
It was sunny, but it was cold again. It was
Oh,
beautiful yesterday, but today it was like 45. It was not
okay.
cute.
All
Mm-mm.
right. All right. Well, God,
That's okay.
it's okay. Yeah, that's okay. All right. So we're just gonna give it a minute for people to join. Hi, everyone. I know we're on P's hosting, but this is a scheduled interview today where uh, P's gonna kind of invite us into what's been going on with her in terms of the quarantine and such. So we're gonna just dive in because Instagram cuts us off in 1 hour, like very strictly. So we're just gonna dive in. I have a little intro for you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Let me know if there's anything inaccurate, of course. But I
Oh,
try
listen,
my best.
sure. Okay.
Okay. So hi everyone. This is an interview under High Fem Curations, and it's a platform where the primary purpose is to uplift and celebrate queer femmes. All right. And today's guest is Sweetpea. And Sweetpea is a sexquisite international burlesque icon who has been tearing up stages all around the world since 2004. She's currently ranked #9 most influential burlesque artist in the entire world. She's a performer, a producer, an advocate, and the energizer honey we all need
Oh.
and crave. Please
Mm,
welcome Sweetpea.
thank you. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited that you said yes to this because just in my experience, just doing it a couple times now, like it is such a service just being able to hear from folks that like we all look up to. So thank you so
Oh, my
much.
pleasure.
Yeah, really. Um, so the first question that I kind of like to open up with because it's under High Fem is just for people to kind of get some insight into your personal queer journey. And you
Mm.
can dive in as much history or not as much as you want. You want to give us some insight into what that's been like for you.
Oh, sure. I mean, as far as when and how, I mean, it's like, how much time do we
And it
have?
can be in the context of like burlesque. Like some things have come up in just talking. Like I, for example, didn't know how queer burlesque was when I first came in the scene. I was like, wow, this is a really gay art form, and a lot of queer
Yes.
people are in it. So it could be under that, or just some history about your own journey, realizing you were queer, whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, in essence, burlesque and my fully expressed queerdom were synonymous. They came in together.
Yeah.
Because I had known when I was very young, and then things weren't really expressed. And then in my late teens, I had some friends that were like, we're going to take you to this movie because you need to. And they like brought me to this movie called The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. And I
Watch
had
that.
my friends sitting on either side of me being like this the entire time. But then it wasn't until probably like another 5 years that I started dating within a primary relationship and started dating women. And it wasn't until burlesque then it was truly where I went to my first burlesque show because the advertisement was were beautiful women in vintage lingerie. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I am down for it.
Yes.
And then as I began my own burlesque journey, it really was such a celebration that I went truly well, femme crazy at the time because I'd been more on the more heteronormative, and then kind of tiptoeing around. And then I really slid in and started playing within the spectrum really fully within burlesque. So yes, I definitely discovered that burlesque enhanced or encouraged my queerdom. And within the celebration, it was just really great. And also there's probably something about within burlesque's current incarnation of being that reclamation of sexuality and sensuality that it really is permission for you to perform it and then explore within that, like, what does that look like for you, and
Definitely.
what fuels you when you're on those stages, and who does it for you, and how do you want to do it for other people.
Yeah. And who is like what is the like who are you gazing towards even, or
Mm-hmm.
who's gazing at you? That's
Yeah.
of it.
And I certainly have found out as I went along where it's just like, it's like, oh, the terms were very very binary, very like you're this or you're that. And then it started becoming more expansive. And then of course you just realize like we're just sexual. I'm just sexual, and gender is not an issue for me. It's not it's just I love people.
Yeah.
And people turn me on, and I have a very broad palette.
Yes, I love that. I relate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, oh my goodness, this is like kind of extra fun for me because this first question that I have in terms of the context of everything going on, I feel like we were in Alaska together when everything was kind of starting to happen and really process. But what can you just tell everyone a little bit about like where were you? What happened when it really first sunk in that production was going to stop? Like everything as we knew it was about to kind of be on hold for a while. Like what was going on in you? What was your mental process like kind of coming to terms with that? Are you still, we're also in that process,
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine, but yeah.
I know, processing as much as possible. I think it's when we were sitting in the airport coming back from Alaska that it really, like the news was really coming through, and we realized it was really happening. And I had made the decision while we were in Alaska together to postpone or cancel my European tour that was supposed to happen like a week after, so like the 19th of March, and it would have been a month long. And so with that decision, I knew that for myself, I was doing something that was hard, but was the right choice. And I felt really guilty about it at first because I felt like I was doing a disservice to the producers who had booked such a fabulous tour for me. And then as we got onto the plane, by the time we got home, we realized that things had shifted very quickly, and we were about to have a complete change in our existence as we knew it. And of course, that came with all production halting.
Mm-hmm. Everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think what's so amazing about you is that like I think it's so easy to make decisions out of just like being selfish or whatever. You know, like having a European tour is like a dream, and you're just kind of like, no, the most responsible thing to do is to not go. And I would imagine it sounded like that was kind of easy for you. It made sense, but
No.
yeah, I can't. I mean,
it was the right thing to do, but it literally came down to like at that point we didn't know what was happening, and my first fear was if I was over there and they suddenly closed borders. Like basically the first round of information was that if I was traveling, there was a chance that I would not be able to get back into the country.
Right.
And having my partner with me as well, and having her being the main line to our livelihood right now financially, it was just something I wasn't willing to compromise. So I did it. I mean, it was hard, but I did it for her. And then, of course, as things shifted quickly, I realized I'd made the right decision, and I wasn't screwing over anybody. I was taking care of all of us.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like you're just a little one step ahead too, because eventually the cancellation would have come from one side or the other at some point. Yeah. And I know that it's been rescheduled to later in the year, so that's great. And I hope that, crossing our fingers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So really on your way back home where everything just kind of shifted very quickly. Yeah.
Yes. Because I was able to tap back into the news and stuff too. While we're in the festival bubble, and I was in birthday weekend bubble and strip club bubble, I was just in that happy little space. So I was just like, money and all the things and strippers and tassels, and it was great. And then you get in the airport, and that's usually when I start to do admin and tap back into the world. And then I was like, it is changing. Things are happening. So, yes.
And you produced several shows back in Minneapolis. So,
yes. Okay. A lot. And it was actually coming up that I had a lot of collaborations or co-productions mounted for the following, for March, April, and going into May, where I'd gotten to team up with like 4 or 5 different producers as well. And on top of our 4 to 5 monthly shows. And yeah, just as soon as we got the call from our governor that all gatherings of more than 75 people, I think at the time, were close quarters, were done, then we just started taking them off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm not a producer, but hearing the experience of the producer, it was just like watching several producers locally here have to go through that hard decision of like, even before things were mandated, to like get in the group, in the reality of like having to cancel events. That's like a totally different process, different from being a performer, having something canceled on you too. Yeah. So.
And realizing one of the things that brings me great joy is not only creating spaces or stages for people and places for people to gather, but is to provide income for so many people. And so, the first halt, like I was really hesitant to cancel like my biggest monthly event, which is Kinky Friday, because it is such a good generator for so many of my entertainers. And then I realized it's like, we all know now what the financial implications have been for so many people who are full timers or mostly full timers. But it was more than that, realizing what would happen if we try to have that gathering. Like we know what happens when people don't stay in their quarantine or their shelter and sparkle.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're a full-time performer.
Yes.
Yes. So you've experienced this very much differently than someone who's able to still work in
Yeah.
the job line.
Yeah, unfortunately, all of my income, my physical, like, in-person income has stopped. So, but I say it's halted. It's not gone because I don't like to use that term. I want to manifest where possible. But yes, it has halted as a current.
And I think that's, thank you for being open about that, because I think a lot of people like haven't been in the position to be able to do it full time. But then, and like a lot of people probably envy that too, that you were able to do that. But then now it's like, yeah, not having those like being able to do it. It's like, and at the same time, not having like because burlesque as an industry isn't like regulated in so many ways. We don't have like the benefits or the background, the support, when you're out of the job. And so thank you for opening up about that, because I think part of what I'm hoping to highlight in this experience is just showing the different ways that people are experiencing this is landing differently for everybody,
Yes.
And everyone has different privileges in this situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Even me saying like, I don't get to perform right now. That is so privileged first world problems compared to the other hardships that people are going through when it comes to more intense, financial circumstances. Because at least I had some savings, and I have a partner who is an essential worker, so she's able to still to take care of the both of us right now. But obviously, there are people whose lives have been lost, who are sick, and so that's like, it fucking sucks to not work, and it sucks to not be on stages and connect with people, but there are people dying. So the fuck what, stay at home. We're all going through this, like, circling the drain financially. And so it's not just one person who's going to have to buckle up or, scale back and then recover afterwards. It's so many of us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So with everything just temporarily halted, can you let us in on what's been kind of your shelter and sparkle like daily routine, if you've had one, if you don't have one? I love hearing how I feel there's a lot of tenderness that people are approaching themselves with during this time. And have you been approaching it more that way?
Yes, I definitely have. Because, of course, now we're getting into a little over a month, or about a month now, right, since we came back from Alaska. And so the first couple weeks was productivity. Like, it's like my thing is like, when shit hits the fan, you chop wood, carry water, right? So you just get to the things that you need to do. So I was cleaning my house and doing all the things that was just allowing me to put my hands on things and to ground in really practical ways. And as everything became like very sparkling clean and organized, then I started looking at, like you said, like looking to see if I was sidestepping some self-care that I could do, and deciding that I could really make some space for some really, like I said, some tender rituals, some daily routines. And I definitely I have a routine every day now that, well, it starts in the evening, and then as I wake up in the morning, it takes like 3 hours, and then I continue on my day with whatever I've scheduled. And that includes, like, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is go grab some coffee, and I spend some time. I'm somebody who works my own personal magic, so I sit with my ancestor altar first, and I go and take my time there. And once I'm done with that, then I come down and pour myself some coffee and enjoy my morning reading. And then after that, for a little while, I go up to another altar, my deity altar, like my guides, and I do yoga and get that done for a little while. Yep, and I spend time there. And then I go down to another altar.
I love it.
Actually, there's like 4 through, so it's like my steps. And then I go and spend some time on that last one, and then I do a morning reading and or writing.
That sounds
So it's,
magical.
yes, it is. It's like I do like a half an hour reading either before, after, and then it's like a mandatory half an hour of the morning pages. If you're familiar with Julia, yeah, Cameron, the Artist Way. So it's usually just like a brain barf, whatever, I'll feel whatever urgency there is. If there's lots of emotions that I wake up with, then I'll sit and write that out first. So I'm not taking that into whatever I'm doing.
Yes.
Or sometimes I wait until afterwards and then I get to share something different. And then from there, I turn into kitchen witch and housewife, and I've been doing all sorts of stuff. And then slowly getting back into some more connecting with the outside world and production stuff a little bit more. People have been asking me about performance stuff and doing some creative things. So
Yeah.
doing that more too. And of course, creating content now as you're like a new thing that has come from this, this hangout and Shelter and Sparkle is having the opportunity to create in a different way that I'd actually had on a to-do list for about 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
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 So I had a little stockpile of like smutty goodness or like some really good, pretty stuff that I've gotten to create with some wonderful people. And so it allowed me to be like, okay, well, there's nothing else going on. Let me figure out what this looks like.
Definitely. I mean, I appreciate that you have such a strong spiritual foundation because I think that really, that can really shift, not to say anyone has to have one, but like having one really, helps. And when things are so scary, and to really be disciplined in that and to really lean on these, because we're kind of in a time of unknown, and then you're using the tools of the unknown to help you during this time.
Yes, it's
And
exactly it.
yeah, and that's really beautiful. I feel like that you have a discipline in that. Like I go in and out of one, but that's amazing that's there and I can tell it's holding.
Thank you. It
That's
has, and it literally hadn't until this time of pause of because I of course had some things that I was doing, like lighting my candles quick and be like, "What's up, peeps?" On my way through. I was doing yoga maybe like once a month or
yeah,
something because I'm someone where it's like I gotta get through everything. I'm gonna go lift weights and be strong, lady.
yeah.
And yeah, so definitely it's holding, and it's something that I've been desiring to include or integrate into my practice because before burlesque, of course, I sat and did all of those things. And
Mm,
then you turn that creative energy, like it's divine energy. So it's like it was going to the stage in other creative pursuits. And so I was not integrating it the way that I had been desiring. So it's not like going back, but kind of like if I'm here just meeting back up with that and seeing what it's like. And
yeah,
I don't know if I had, I wouldn't have been able to do it, or at least I don't think I would have started doing the routine had I not had to stop, because otherwise it would have been just when my own natural momentum of performing kind of shifted slightly that I might have done the same, like
right.
self-comfort, let me get into my woo.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, your life, from what I under from it, is very much go. You're very busy, and yeah, it sounds like and but like you said, it's always with you. No matter
Yes.
whatever is happening. It's just right now. It's a little bit maybe more intricate and detailed in the way that is really nice when you can be in that space too and utilize all those tools every
Oh,
day. Yeah,
thank you.
that's
Thank you.
yeah,
Oh, thanks, Liberty.
yeah.
Yes, I appreciate you pause. Yes.
Yeah, totally. It's certainly a gift.
Word
Um,
choice. It's like we have to. It's all, all thought and word is creative. So we want to be very careful and choosy about what we're thinking and what we're putting out there.
definitely. It's
Hmm.
definitely and I think it's like certainly a practice to be able to do that. Like I feel we all have that internal dialogue that can totally make us go down that dark rabbit hole. But like you said, the seed happens in the thought, and then if you speak it, then it's a stronger vibration, and then
Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And it's tough, even when you're like really present with all the grief and fear and anxiety that's happening right now. It's like it's so fucking valid, and at the same time, it changes us. Like if we stay in it for not for too long, because obviously everybody's timing is different. But if we are in it for a long enough time, it really shifts the vibration, and then those neural pathways start to wire, and it's hard to get out of those trenches.
very yeah, very very.
Well,
You kind of touched upon a little bit, saying this time also afforded you to think about some other projects you've been thinking about for a while now. So, in terms of kind of what's been happening in the burlesque scene and how we transformed live performance in person to kind of live experiences virtually.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that? Have you done a live show yet? Is there one? I think I saw something coming up soon for you. You're going to be in. So what have you watched some? Like, what are your thoughts about?
I've I've watched some. I have it's just interesting, right? It's like I kind of like I paused on it just because my own reason of wanting to spend the time with myself
Mm-hmm.
and like and not perform. I just needed to not have be a performer for a little while. I really wanted to check in with myself. And but I loved watching everybody else like get to creating because it brings them joy.
Yeah.
And I've been I've been watching and having fun. I've been loving all the new content people are creating and all the TikToks and stuff that giving me life.
So fun.
It's ridiculous. I've done a couple of things, but literally I've gone into to TikTok so that I can use the effects and the songs and stuff
Yes.
to make content for my OnlyFans, and I make it private and then I delete it.
That's so smart.
Right? Because then you can get away with like all the fun things where you're like, I'm naked, and yes.
Yeah.
So there's the tips there. But I like watching what everybody else is doing. I just I have not had the desire or the bandwidth to create in that space yet, but I love it. And I love now that people are like, hey, let's perform live. Let's do these things where we're either performing live or we're creating stuff at home and recording it and sending it off so it can be in shows. And so that's actually what I've been asked to do for this week, as I'm going to appear in Fire and Fury, which is I got to do their a show for them in New York in the fall, I believe.
Okay.
And they were fabulous. And so they asked me, and I was like, fuck it, yes. I can't hang out for too long because I got to get back into it. Like, I've been doing some costuming and having some fun and, like, making my little, like, list of things that I want to do. But I've gotten a couple of requests, and there's the one that is, like, the first thing up that I'm going to say yes to. And then Michelle Lamore's Quarantine Cabaret has been fantastic. And she asked if I would participate with that. So I just have to decide what I want to create and then and send something over. So wrapping my brain around it, because I know that I definitely had a bias where I'm like, nah, no, it's live performance, the energy. Like I am about the energy that I am able to project when I am in a room with someone, whether it's 5 feet away or, 500 feet away. And oftentimes when I watch burlesque through a screen, energy gets quelled, like it gets squished so much.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when I watch videos, I'm like, oh, I can tell that was awesome, but like the recording killed about half of the energy. Right. So I was a little biased. I was like, oh, I'm not quite sure. But then I've been watching people and really seeing that with this challenge, that the challenge of also elevating our energetic accessibility has grown.
Totally. If you think about it, I haven't thought about it in that way. Can you access enough power where I can almost penetrate through the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Anyone can do it. It's you.
I'm going to try. And that's exactly, it's like my rehearsal is not that like, oh, can I do these steps or whatever? It's like, how can I like chuck pussy magic? Yes. Like, or just like be with people in that way and the way that I can when I'm, just doing my other stuff up close and personal.
Yes. Well, that's going to be exciting to see those two opportunities. I'm sure a lot more will flood down the line as this continues and people are establishing their own, productions. I'm seeing new ones pop up all the time. It's such an interesting time because like essentially anyone could be like, we don't need a venue, so I'm going to do a show, get whoever dream cast, and get that going. But yeah, I love hearing your perspective about it because your entire career has been live, I mean, and yeah, for like newer folks too, it's like we're not that far into the game like myself. Okay, this is happening, and I guess there might be some more like flexibility around like what that looks like through the screen or whatever. But I was talking to Banbury Cross yesterday. She's like, I'm a live performer. I'm not going to do any of this live stuff, and I think it's baller too,
Yes.
I think it's also cool to kind of just try what's going on with the times. That's not seems like you're in that balance yourself. It's like I know what I prefer, but yes, I'm open. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think one of the things for me as well is that in my own, I don't want to get ahead to the questions that you'll probably get to asking. But one of the things about being a full-time performer is that all of my earning is active. I have to be there. And so creating, like looking at ways, it's like my financial plan, because of course, one of the things that has been revealed by the situation is that especially full-time performers or a lot of people who just didn't have their financial their finances in order is that it just kicked us really hard, like it kicked really hard, really fast. So looking at ways in which we're playing for the long game, which includes creating passive income. And a way to do that is to start looking at the digital resources that are available and the way that people are communicating and entertaining. And I've been kind of dragging my feet about it because I feel like Grandma Dinosaur. I'm like, fuck it, I want live theater. But it's finally, like I said, it's given me the opportunity to see how I want to exist and how I want to play with these new mediums.
That makes sense. And I know you have a OnlyFans. Do you have
Yes.
do you have a Patreon as well?
I do. That hasn't been as active, and I think actually I might focus more like what I was wrapping my brain around is of the many things that I do. Right? It's like of course I love being a sexy naked performer. I also really love being a mentor and a coach. And being a personal trainer for 20 years who studied in functional medicine and is a therapeutic lifestyle coach, I also want to maybe just kind of like give little glimpses into practical magic and just daily self-care stuff that we can do, and allowing for that Patreon to transform into something that is more along the Coach P realm, where it's, nutrition or maybe just hacks, and then moving our bodies joyfully and information about what we can do. And it's just basically different tenets. So it's not just about like, let's work out, but taking care of ourself in the many different ways.
I love that.
And some burlesque stuff too, of course.
Well, I think you're such a pioneer in terms of like being healthy about like in terms of like I feel like even for myself, sometimes stretching is not even a thing before. And so, like learning how to like see people like you, I know you take care of yourself, your body is your instrument and everything. And I can just tell there's an honor there in a way that I don't see in a lot of performers who take care of like the temple, right? So I think there's a lot to learn from you in that realm too, of wellness and Coach P. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Coach P. I was like, that's the hashtag is Coach P. So yeah, keeping that. I like that. Some people who subscribe to my Patreon and kind of letting them know I don't know if I want to manage to like like more adult smutty porn style avenues. I think I would really like to make sure that I'm taking care of many different aspects of me as well, and that would be to share myself as a coach and teach and and just share some other things and see how people respond. We have such a beautiful community, and I feel really fortunate, inspired by the people who have shown up to my classes, who've been waiting for me to teach. And I was just like, I can't right now. Sorry, guys, because I'm too busy performing and touring, but that ain't happening right now. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of that energy can go there. Like you said, there's so many different platforms for all like the different parts of ourselves, right? And but it takes a lot of energy and work, like you said. Like I think it makes sense that you have to retreat for a little bit before you kind of come back out, because people who haven't stopped, who are on the go creating content, all those amazing things. It's like it's just another commentary. I think how we're all responding to this, and at some point, like some might crash, and the ones who've been hiding will kind of sprout up, and it's going to be kind of a cycle in that way.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And in that way, it's kind of like a passing of the baton or towing the line too, because those who coped by creating content right away might need to scale back and breathe, and then those of us who just had a different coping mechanism to start will be emerging. So it's just kind of like, great, you all can rest now if you want to, and then another wave comes through. So it's different ways in which we're stepping in to care for audiences and for each other.
Definitely. I love that. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about just kind of the things that have sprouted that's been kind of nice that maybe you might not have been expecting to experience during this time, like getting quiet, getting back into your spiritual routine and practices. Is there anything else that's been kind of surprising, that's been positive for you about sheltering in Sparkle? Like that you're like, oh, I didn't know I actually needed that, or
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I know that I needed it, but I was not like, I feel like I take it all as it comes, and so I was not going to not be grateful for the momentum of my career that my career was taking. And so it's just kind of like, yes, I feel like I was a little tipping as far as balance goes of what I could be doing, but I wasn't going to stop with all of the abundance I was experiencing with my career in order to clean my closets, play out my garden, or just take care of things that were just that grounding, like our daily self, where it's allowed me people think, oh my gosh, are you okay? They checked on me. They're like, your livelihood is being out in front of people. And like, newsflash, I'm a huge fucking introvert. And so, yes.
Oh, wow.
And so, which is why, like my fuel, I get fueled. I love people. I love people so much. And I love performing for people, but I get fueled by my time alone. And so I actually have not had a problem not performing. It's just kind of like, I've totally been wanting this, but I wasn't going to push for it until it showed up. Like it was, time for balance. So it was great. So it was nice to have that downtime and to discover that some of the things that showed up because of this pause were the things that I've been teaching in some of my classes, like in my stage presence and energetic reach workshop, whatever, and talking to people about how I approach burlesque, that we get to a place where we're just not like putting out all this like sexy, amazing content. It's like, go, 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 go. But it's like, I want the way that we approach our art to impact and inform the way that we live our life. So it's not like we're like glamorous 24/7, but if we're on stages telling people that we're just these magically sexy, ooey gooey, artful creatures, what I want is for like my goal in life is to have a life that is better than what I post on social media. And so the process of what I put on stage is kind of like and I said, here's a glimpse. And so being at home has really allowed me to get back into doing what I preach, like, walking the talk, where I'm like, do these things daily that get you into you honoring yourself as this divine creature of making space, like living your life artfully, and then approaching every part as far as like this reverence for self and the way that you share yourself with others. And then lo and behold, I've been able to do that even more.
Wow, I got chills. That's awesome. Like, especially that one line of just, I feel like what's hard about the fact that the social media, and all these online platforms are the only ways to kind of connect and continue the work is, I just think is ironic, because it's also the very thing that I think creates the most delusion too for all of us, and it's so inaccurate to what's going on for people,
Yeah.
It's so easy to paint a picture, like you said, everything's glamorous and perfect and blah, 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 which those things are absolutely a part of
They're amazing. Yes.
Yeah, but, and that's why I love being able to connect, people like you who are open to being like vulnerable about these things, because it's not always so glamorous. But the thing is, like, the process of that daily kind of, like you said, chop wood, carry water, I think that's glamorous and beautiful and magical too. It really is.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I really think that it is too. And it allows us to be fueled by so much more than just what an audience gives, where it's like tapping into a wellspring, into the ether too, where it's just like, there's just so much more that is fueling us and cheering for us that can start from within. Mm-hmm. Like there is glamour in truly being satisfied and within yourself. And that was one of the things that I was checking. Like, I've been doing all sorts of like arty renovation stuff, and I was making myself not post my progress on what I was doing, because I realized I wanted to be with myself and not perform self. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to make sure, because I'm so used to being a performer, that I'm like, I got to capture this. I got to create content. And I'm just like, no, it still has value if I'm not posting about it. And so I need to learn how to get back into doing things that are just for me. Like, and I think that's probably a pitfall that a lot of performers have, where we're just like, oh, if I'm not posting about it, it doesn't matter.
It's not real.
It does. Yes, the way that we arrange a corner, the way that we talk about it right day, the way that we brush stroke something that no one else might ever see has a fuck ton of value.
Definitely. Thank you for
saying
that. Yeah. Is Diva here? Hi.
I see Diva. Yes.
You just perform. I think you just performed Diva.
I know. I want to go watch it.
Yeah, I hope it gets saved so we can watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think that's so important that you just said that, and there's something really necessary about that kind of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so much of what. I think it's specific to the burlesque scene too. A lot of it is that documentation. The part we're working, we're creating, something new is happening, and the pressures of that can be overwhelming for most of us.
And it's required. And the great thing is that the thing, like, I realize that, I mean, it's still like I'm doing for myself, but here's the kicker: I'm doing for myself, and that is going to be like, what are you doing to prepare for going back out and working on your art? I'm I'm doing me, which means when I come back and approach my art, it's going to be magnified in a way that I didn't realize it needed to be infused. So we were like, oh shit, like, so I get it. Like me taking that time means that as I step back into performative spaces and creating, it's going to be fueled that much more.
Even more. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Hi,
absolutely.
Emerald. Oh, my family's all
Yeah,
showing up. I
yeah.
love it.
Please tell. Hi, everyone. Thanks for
Mm-hmm.
listening in. Um,
Yeah.
I do find it really interesting. I love that you said performing hasn't been hard for you. Not performing hasn't been hard for you. So what has been hard, and apart from like the obvious, you know?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, the hardest thing, and I'm like, and honestly, I had a really, really hard day. And that is because the hardest thing is not being able to show up for my family. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, sorry, I'm not gonna do it. But a week ago today, I had a family member pass away unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm the type of person that no matter what happens in the world, like there's always going to be stages. But I got word that my uncle was, he had a biopsy on Wednesday. On Friday, he got the news that he had stage 4 cancer. And by Sunday morning, he had passed. And so I would have hopped on a plane with my father. I would have done all the things to show up for family and comfort my grandmother and be with my other grandmother who's in isolation for a different thing. And so my hardest thing is being not able to show up in the way that I normally like to, because it makes me feel good to be able to hold space for people when they're going through shit. I mean, my whole life I've been the one that like, hold the phone, I'm gonna tie on a cape and I'm gonna run in, not because I've got some sort of savior mentality, but because I just feel my best when I'm able to be there with my family and provide support. And so to not be able to be there with such a big shift with family has been tough. It's
Yeah.
been That's been the hardest part for sure. And hearing the grief and all of my family's voices and what they've had to do, which we all have to process on our own anyways. But of course we feel better about being able to like, barnacle and chop wood, carry water, make coffee, feed people, do all the things. So that's been the hardest.
Wow. I mean, that I'm getting like shivers in my bodies because it's like I had that question about how you've been connecting with family, and I had no idea that. So I'm so sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's a huge experience that a lot of people are having right now.
Yes.
I've learned of some deaths within like my circle of people, and we cannot show up in the way that we want to, and it's a
No.
tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is allowing me. So part of my new, like when you talk about rituals, now my ritual is, and when I get offline with you, is that I call my dad's mom,
Mhm.
who is the mother of my uncle who just died,
Mhm.
and we talk every night now. It takes 10 minutes because she's not a phone talker, and we do our little like quick shoot the shit. She tells me what she eats for dinner. I tell her what I eat, and then she makes fun of it because she's like, "Oh, I wouldn't eat that."
Yeah.
And we have our connection, and then after that, I call my other grandma and check in with her too. And so doing that, where it's like, yeah, it sucks that I haven't been able to. I'm such a very tactile person, and I wanted to wrap my arms around people and do all sorts of things. But I am being present with them in ways that I haven't been. Where it's like, oh, I can't really show up for people unless I'm sitting in front of them. And then we realize like the biggest ways that we can show up for people is to show up as a daughter or as a friend or as a whatever granddaughter, and you just call for 10 minutes. Just say, I am thinking about you. I love you so much. So there's been a lot more being impeccable with my words and just taking the time to be like, you mean so much to me, or it makes me feel so bad to hear you hurting so much and have me not be able to do anything for you. Um, so that's been a huge change for me. Not putting it off because I think I need to have like a 10-hour day to go and have a marathon with my grandmother out and about, but being able to call her and be like, tell me what shit you watched on TV today.
Yeah, just the little things, truly. And
Yeah.
like you said, you're such a tactile person. You're someone who shows up. I remember when I joined in on you were doing kind of a Q&A on Instagram Live like a week or two ago, and you're talking about your experience showing up for Camille 2000 and traveling to her and being with her day in and day out. And like that is your character. That's what you know how to, that's how you show up for people. And so this pandemic is literally is the this it's just so horrible that's the thing that cuts us off. That's the hardest thing for people who are, you know or showing up is what is how you show love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but at least it's allowing us to increase our love languages and vocabulary so that we are filling in those spaces. Like we might be like, hi, I love you by showing up and bringing a candy bar. Mm-hmm. And now it's, hi, I love you because I'm saying, hi, I love you. And let's fill in so much more of that content and intimacy so that the next time we get to be with one another in person, it's going to be enhanced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that.
So opportunity with the obstacles. I'm still a Pollyanna. I had an emotional day. I was like crying on and off all day. You got to vent the tears as a water sign. I'm just like, ugh. But I'm still optimistic as fuck. Like I am, yes. Pollyanna P.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
And you honor your feelings. I think that's what's beautiful too. It's like, it's one thing to be optimistic, but then like to hold everything in and it's like sweltering inside. I mean, that's kind of what I do a little bit, but yeah. Yeah. Feel your feelings.
I don't share a lot. I share with very few people, but like stuffing it, no. There's a quote that says, like grief that finds no vent in tears will make other organs weep, which means that sorrow stores in the body, and if we don't sit with our feelings and find ways to process it, even if it's just like honoring it for a little bit and figuring out what to do with it, that shit, I believe that it shows up in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, manifest, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember my mom would always say like anger can turn into cancer, if you hold that anger inside. And
absolutely. All of it. All of it. I know it's tricky shit, and it's not very glamorous, but fuck it. This is like, that's why I didn't go full showgirl today. I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about some real stuff. So, hi, here I am.
But but it all ties in. I think the reason why you are such a magnetic performer is because you do the work off stage, and I think that's something that I firmly believed in, like separate from burlesque world. How you show up in the world is the stuff that you do like in your private, everything off when people are not seeing, the writing that you do, the introspection, the deep like work that you have to do. So when you do show up, it's not like you have to be like on and like sparkly and stuff, but it's like, yourself so deeply that like the world is not going to determine your experience, and that comes out in who you are because you do the work. And so for me, and you see that on the stage with you,
Thanks. So, that means a lot to hear from you.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
People saying hi. So I don't know, my thing isn't really updating. Hi, everyone.
That's okay. I know I may be missing some of the comments, but hi. I'm like, oops.
Hello.
Make sure I don't fuck up what we're doing here.
Well, we have a few minutes, 10, 12 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's see. I want to dive into at the end, like how we can support you, of course. Before we get there, some kind of like more like fun little things too. Like I know that you are a huge fitness advocate and you work out a lot, and I love that. You inspire me to like move my body, not just by dancing, but in like strengthening, I think that's really sexy. And so gyms are closed. How have you been able to stay upkeep with your workout regimen and stuff like that?
Well, fortunately, before I started doing burlesque, I was a personal trainer. So I've been a trainer. Yes, I've been a personal trainer for a long time, for over 20 years. But because of that, like I also have, I have a basement. Like in the Midwest, we have basements, and I had like one of those unfinished concrete basements, and decided. I mean, I'd done some things to get a gym set up down there, and so with not having the access to gyms, it made us inhabit our gym space better, which meant for me, it's like I wanted to spark more joy when I went downstairs. Of course, I love, like I had some mirrors up and I've got some equipment up stuff. But what I started to do is like one process brought me to another. So I was going through my archives, and I found all of my old show posters from when I started, that a lot of them were laminated to make sure they stayed intact, whatever. And so I was like, man, I really want to redo my basement, but I've got those stucco crumbling concrete walls. That's going to take such an endeavor to redo. So what if I covered the walls in all of those laminated posters? And then I started doing that, and I was like, oh, then I paint the trim, and I did that. So it took like a week to just redo my basement, to create like the most bright, like basically the punk rock burlesque like gym dance studio that I always wanted, where it's like there's a pole next to a heavy bag, next to a squat rack, next to whatever. So every day, Seven and I, so one part of our routine is when Seven gets home from work, we usually take the dog for a walk. And then when we come back from that, we go downstairs and we at least do like a 30-minute together of just high intensity, I call HIIT training, high intensity interval training, or I call them like P's pods, where they're just like little condensed circuits. And it's been really good. It's been really, really good because we can spend a couple hours at the gym, but reality, it's like if we're on point, you can get so much done in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things where being downstairs and being re-inspired by my own workout time and space is like, okay, I'm ready to be Coach P again and start to share some of those things with people and see how people need to be, I don't know, to be guided or inspired or whatever. There's so many amazing classes that people are doing right now.
I know, I was just going to ask you, would you, is something like doing like a live on some kind of fitness training for like 30 minutes or something you'd be open to doing that people can even like, because I know a lot of people are doing is going live and then inviting people to tip. And I know people have been making some good money doing that too. So is that something you would do? Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
That's one of my goals is to start to offer that a little bit because I have missed training so much. I love coaching and being a trainer. So to do that, to invite people into some things that I'm doing. And then if people want more, that's where the Patreon will shift into.
Definitely.
Into like fuller lifestyle coaching and the sort of like, what can we do when we're on lockdown? Well, we can look at different ways to care for ourselves.
Really transform. Yeah. Definitely. That's awesome. I love that. And I think it's cool because we don't have a basement here, but we have a second room. And since being at home more, we're like utilizing all the spaces of the home. It's like,
yes.
This part of the house really didn't get that much love, but now it is. And
yeah, I mean, living rooms are great for workouts. The burlesque legend Adina Ross, she's on here on Instagram too. It's like Harlow 1950, I think. I can share it later. But she sent me a picture of her space where it's like she normally would teach yoga. She's a breast cancer survivor, and so she teaches yoga to breast cancer survivors. And since she hasn't been able to do that, she's been laying out her mat in front of her television and taking other YouTube classes because she's like, I figured I can put YouTube on my television.
Yes.
And it's great. So it's like, you don't need a lot. I had the privilege of having had a space that was being underutilized, and I made it into something, and I realized it's a huge privilege. It's like my burlesque like workout basement. So it's fun. But you don't need that. Like,
picture of that. It sounds so awesome.
Oh yeah, I'll do a tour. I almost was going to do it. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's still like just concrete and whatever, but I'll show it. It's like it's just fun. Like I said, it's what I wanted to do probably as a teenager, except for like stapling the album cover or like the albums on the ceiling, like in the old Pretty in Pink or whatever. If you know that movie, I dated myself just now.
Yes. That's awesome. No, I just love that imagery in my head, and you and Seven just working out there. That's bonding too. Yeah, that's very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Alrighty. So one of my last questions for you is, and if you don't have to answer to it, it's totally okay. But as soon as this is all over, I would imagine like wherever you perform live first, is there a particular act that you would want to do first that would be the most special thing for you to do at the moment? I don't know. I feel like the first time you perform after all this is done is going to be very, depending on the person, but I would imagine like really special for a lot. It's pretty hard to going through. Is there a particular act that comes to mind? Is there something new or you don't know?
No, I don't know yet. I think it's going to really, I just kind of put it on hold. I haven't been like, oh, I can't wait to do this. It'll literally be when I know what the first thing will be and I get to look at what I would want to put on stage, and I'll do that.
Yeah.
If anything, I've been like, oh, I really wanted to use this time to create some new stuff or to kind of rework some stuff I had kind of done like I've only a few times and really wanted to take care of. But I'll get into that a little bit more. I had to redo a costume piece that I lost in Australia. So I'm looking for, I've been fun doing that. I was going to share that end process. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. Like basically the first thing I'm excited to do is to perform in front of somebody live. Yeah. And whether that is tossing a glove off towards somebody or giving a lap dance or, flogging the shit out of them, I am so excited I'll be excited just to have that exchange.
Yeah. That exchange, that's the magic for sure of live anything for sure.
Yep. And we're all going to be so ready for it. So I think it's going to just be such a high.
Oh my God, it's going to be so, I don't know if I could handle it if I just go high back.
Yeah.
So Sweetpea, tell us, how can we support you? Once this is up on YouTube, I'll link all your links that you're on, platforms you're on, but if you can just kind of verbally tell us how we can find you and support you and access more of you if we want to receive that.
Oh, sure. I mean, depending on what you're into, if you like super nude work and seeing, like the body naked, my OnlyFans is great. If you are looking for like, buy an 8x10. I found my photo stash, and I actually have to go and sign a bunch more photos to send out.
Yeah, how
If
can
you're Yes. If you, I don't know, like basically there's OnlyFans if you just want to if you want to connect with somebody and just have some time to work on an act or just talk about your career, and you feel like you have that extra to tip a little bit or to hire me as a coach or a mentor, I'm very available for that right now. Otherwise, if you just kind of want to wait to see what it looks like or what my flavor is when I start creating content from Coach P perspective, you can
yes.
do that as well.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sweetpea, you are one of the most magical people I've met. You truly are. I really appreciate the energy, your vulnerability, and just your presence in this time. Like I'm electrified with rawness from everything you shared, and thank you for agreeing to do this, and yeah, just sharing where you're at with everything. I think that um, I keep saying it's like this, it's just a strange, weird, traumatic time in so many different ways, and you hit
Yeah.
upon a lot of things that I think that are, not burlesque related in terms of performance, but for me, I understand burlesque has connection, right? And so
Yeah.
even like with your experience with your uncle, it's all like connection that you're able to do in different ways now, but not able to do in like the ways you normally would. And I think it's just an interesting commentary of these times from your perspective. So thank you for
Thank you.
joining on this today. Thank you to everyone who joined us this evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, this interview will be up on YouTube later this week, so you can review it. The Wisdom of Sweetpea again if you'd like. I couldn't quite pin it for some reason. I don't know why, but usually I have it pinned at the bottom to, if you have in your means, to please tip our guests on Venmo. You can find Sweetpea on Venmo at Queen P. That's QUEENPEA. If you need that information, please feel free to message me or P. So hello, everyone. So thank you again, Sweetpea.
Yeah.
I love you
Thank you.
loads.
Love you.
Yes, Seven, I love you if you're there too.
She's up resting already. She's got to get up at like 4 in the morning. So
Oh, God. Bless
I
her.
know.
Yeah.
Well, give licks my love too and their foot.
Yeah. I'm sure you just healed their foot just by saying that. So.
I would rub body parts on it. See, this is where I would work with. Okay, I'm just like sending the magic
I
through.
know. I know they're feeling it. They're in the room recording.
Consensually, of course. But I love and adore you both, and I really appreciate you and just the force you are and how you're showing up in this scene. You're wonderful.
Oh,
And I'm very glad that this burlesque community brought us together.
Same. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Love you all.
Love you guys. Bye.